Running might just be the most popular sport there is. A big part of this is its accessibility and simplicity. Just lace up your shoes, step outside and move. Just you and the rhythm of your breath and the sound of your feet against the earth. Today, running is everywhere. It's bigger and more visible than ever before. From city streets to mountain trails, from sold-out marathons to massive run club gatherings, everybody seems to be running. For health, for friendship, for identity. It's inspiring, it's powerful, but it's also changing faster than ever before. And with that change, we have to ask ourselves, does running still have what made it special in the first place? So let's go back and find out how we got here and what running means to us now. To understand where we are today, we have to look back to a time where modern running began. The story starts in the 60s and 70s when jogging wasn't yet a lifestyle but rather a strange new habit a few people were just beginning to try. In New Zealand, a coach named Arthur Lydiard started organizing the world's first jogging clubs. He believed that everyone, not just athletes, should experience the joy and health benefits of this simple type of movement. One of his visitors was an American track coach named Bill Bowerman. Bowerman brought the idea home, and in 1966 he published a small book simply called Jogging. It was a simple prescription for health and happiness, and it popularized running for the first time to millions of ordinary people. Then, when in 1972 Frank Shorter won Olympic marathon gold in Munich, almost overnight, running exploded. Across the United States, Europe, and beyond, people flooded the streets in cotton shirts and simple sneakers. In 1968, sports medicine specialist Ken Cooper gave running a scientific background with his book Aerobics. Suddenly, it wasn't just recreation anymore, it was medicine. Running became a symbol of freedom and longevity, something you did for yourself, not to compete, but to simply live better. It was pure, simple, liberating, and it laid the foundation for everything that came after. What began as a simple movement for health soon turned into something much, much bigger. The 1980s brought a new kind of energy and new opportunities. Running wasn't just about feeling good anymore. It was becoming part of pop culture. Big brands entered the picture. Nike, Adidas, Asics. They saw not just athletes, but a huge market of millions of potential runners. They turned performance into personality and freedom into fashion. In 1988, Nike's campaign, Just Do It, captured the spirit of the era. Suddenly, running wasn't a niche habit anymore. It was cool, bold, and even rebellious. Across the world, marathons became mass events. New York, London, Berlin, thousands lined up in the streets to run or to watch and cheer. Running turned social, measurable, spectacular. The finisher medal became a badge of identity. The t-shirt a symbol of belonging. By the 2000s, the running industry was booming. New shoe technologies, performance gels, GPS watches, and marketing that promised faster times and better selves. But as running grew, so did the pressure. It wasn't enough to just run anymore. You had to run farther, faster, and better. What started as an individual act of freedom had become a collective pursuit of performance. Still, these were the golden years for the sport. Millions found purpose through training plans and finish lines. The culture of running had arrived, and the world was running together. In the 2010s, the running boom reached its peak. The streets were full, the races sold out, and running had become, normal. What once felt revolutionary was now routine. Across the world, participation numbers began to stagnate, and in some places even started to decline. The marathon, once the ultimate dream, had turned into a bucket list item, something to do once, tick off, and move on from. The culture that had once been about freedom and discovery through movement started to feel a little predictable. At the same time, new forms of fitness training were rising. Strength training in gyms or CrossFit was hyped across younger generations that were looking for something new and something exciting. And for the first time in decades, running was no longer the trendsetter, but rather the tradition. The roads were still full of runners, but the movement itself had slowed down. That is, until one unexpected event changed everything. In 2020, the pandemic hit, tragedy struck, and the world stopped. Virtually overnight, streets emptied, gyms closed, and team sport disappeared. Movement itself felt restricted for the first time in a long time. But with social distancing, lockdowns, and curfews all around the world, one thing was still allowed: to go outside and run. Across the world, people laced up their shoes and stepped out their doors. Some had been running for years. Others were trying it for the very first time. In those months of isolation, running became a form of escape, a way to cope with uncertainty and to feel good about ourselves. Studies later showed that almost a third of all current runners began during the pandemic. A massive wave of new energy. Running got younger, more diverse, and more connected than ever before. And yet for many, it wasn't even about performance. It wasn't about times, medals, or data. It was about getting much needed stress relief, breathing fresh air, just getting out, and the feeling of moving forward in itself. Out of isolation grew connection, online training through Strava groups and virtual run clubs. Running evolved into a shared retreat. For the first time in decades, running wasn't a competition, it was community. A reminder that movement at its core is one of the simplest ways to feel human. But as the world reopened, something changed again. The quiet, personal act of running, that moment of solitude so many had rediscovered, began to merge with something louder. Running went online, Strava feeds filled with personal records and digital medals. TikTok and Instagram turning the morning run into daily content. Every pace, every route, every step could now be tracked, shared, and liked. And after all, if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen. What began as community started turning into competition. Running became aesthetic, quantified, and algorithmic. Watches tracking our heart rates, our zones, our recovery scores, apps analyzing every kilometer, gear that was never necessary in the first place, now being promoted as essential for beginners. Seemingly a million running gurus appearing, and for many of the runners, the joy of movement being replaced by metrics, comparisons, and an external drive for improvement. Of course, it wasn't all bad. For many, this new digital culture brought accountability and inspiration. Seeing others run helps us lace up ourselves. But something else was growing beneath the surface. The simple act of running was slowly becoming about how it looked, about how we could polish our external impression by being part of the aesthetic. The joy of movement turned into the pressure of measurement. The run became a post. And the freedom that running once gave us now depended on the approval of others. To be fair, this new running culture has done a lot of good. Through social media, the sport became visible again, and maybe for the first time ever, truly welcoming and accessible. Influencers, creators, and local clubs opened the door for beginners of every background. Not only did the average runner get a lot younger since the pandemic, there's also been a massive rise in female participation. Many people who never saw themselves as runners before suddenly thought, maybe I could try that too. Be it thanks to inspiring, welcoming creators, the post-pandemic hype, or simply the desire to be part of something. Every new runner, whatever their reason, is another person doing something good for themselves, and that in itself is worth celebrating. Accountability also became easier. Sharing runs, progress, and goals online helps people staying consistent. Seeing others show up, rain or shine can be exactly the push you need to get yourself out of the door. And then there's the social side. After the isolation of the pandemic, run clubs exploded in size and energy. They went from digital to real-world gatherings. And for many, they became a new way to make friends, to date, to belong, to be seen. Running stopped being a solitary activity. It became a shared ritual, a celebration of community. And maybe that's the best part. Everybody can share their story now, from 5K beginners to marathon veterans. Everybody gets a voice, a space, and a place to belong. With visibility also came pressure. The same platforms that connected us began to shape how we saw ourselves as runners. If it's not on Strava, it didn't happen. What started as a joke slowly turned into a quiet truth. A constant need for validation crept in. People stopped posting their slow runs, questioning their easy days, their rest days. Fear of judgment replaced authenticity. Everyone's feeds looking faster, stronger, more consistent. It felt like everyone else was racing, hitting personal bests almost every day, training harder. And suddenly the line between motivation and comparison had never been thinner. FOMO spread fast, unhealthy expectations followed, and rest started to feel like laziness. The quiet joy of running turned into pressure, the pressure to always do more. Then came the data obsession. Pace, heart rate, zone 2, VO2 max, sleep score, training readiness. The numbers started to mean more than how we felt. We trusted the watch, more than we trusted our own bodies. For some, this led to burnout or anxiety when progress slowed. Others dropped out completely after injuries, unable to handle the silence of not posting. Some suffered even worse consequences, feeling sick and being unable to listen to their bodies. Social media promised connection, but it also made running performative. The same app that cheers you on quietly tells you you are not enough. What began as motivation became measurement, and somewhere along the way we forgot that running isn't about proving anything to anyone. And then there's the ugly side. As the running world moved online, authenticity slowly became a marketing strategy. Influencers selling motivation as lifestyle, companies monetizing inspiration. What once was a personal passion turned into marketing language. Every real moment, just another post with a logo in the corner. Be yourself, they said, but only if it fits the brand. The influencer economy blurred the line between community and commerce. Authenticity became strategy and motivation became the market. Running, once an act of self-expression, turned into a content niche, an aesthetic built on perfect morning light, race medals, and carbon-plated shoes. Gear that once symbolized adventure or discipline now symbolizes identity. You didn't just wear a brand, you were the brand. Runners began shaping their identities around performance data and aesthetic perfection. The sport, once meaning independence and self-reliance, became dependent on digital approval. And for beginners, the entry point became even harder to find. From day one, they were bombarded with extreme expectations. Sub-3-hour marathons, double run days, comments such as, "Don't even call yourself a runner if you can't run 5K in under 20 minutes. Or finishing a marathon isn't impressive. Everybody can do it." This is nonsense, of course, but when you hear it often enough, it starts to feel like the truth. This pressure, it creates feelings of inadequacy. It leads to overtraining, burnout, and injury. The message is clear. Whatever you do, it's never enough. And in a world where enough no longer exists, runners start chasing something new, something extreme. The marathon stopped being the finish line and it became the starting point. But after every finish line comes a moment of silence. And in that silence, we finally have time to reflect. Maybe the answer isn't the next bigger event. Maybe not everyone has to be extreme or elite or rank in the top 10% of their age group. Now, I'm not saying that there's no place for that. I have huge respect for everyone who chooses to keep challenging themselves, who genuinely enjoys pushing, testing their limits, and expanding what's possible in this sport. But for many of us, the answer was always here, in the simplicity we left behind. After years of chasing faster times, better data, and bigger goals, some of us are quietly choosing a different path. We leave the watch at home. We stop uploading every run. We start listening again to our breath, our footsteps, our thoughts. We're running slower, softer, with more intent, not to compete, but to relax. For us, running isn't about proving anything anymore. It's about presence, about clarity, about peace. The irony is, this isn't something new. It's a return to what running always was, a way to feel alive. Because running will outlast all of this, the trends, the tech, the hype. It doesn't need any of those things. It only needs a pair of shoes, a bit of time, and the courage to start.